It's game day. Get your horns up, and where Bobby and I are, get your forks up. We're at Kirby Lane off the drag here by the Texas campus. It's Texas and Arkansas, 2:30 kickoff for the Longhorns and the Razorbacks. This is the On Texas Football Tailgate Show, brought to you by Kirby Lane. Bobby, you want to tell us a little bit about our friends at Kirby Lane before we get started?
Yeah, absolutely. If you'd come over here. These are the folks at Kirby Lane that are taking care of us today. You can see already here we've got the Denver omelet with hash browns, or with what do you call those?
Home fries.
Home fries, as well as pecan pie. That's the special pancake. It's delicious. Thank you for having us today. And we'll talk to you a little bit later.
Yeah. Let me know if you want anything.
All right. Thank you so much. Appreciate the folks at Kirby Lane here joining us and allowing us to come in and hang out. We've already talked to a couple of fans that have stopped by and said hello to us. Jeff, Longhorns have Arkansas here at 2:30 this afternoon. Texas, a 8.5-point favorite as of this morning. It'll be interesting to see what happens and where things go and what Texas team shows up. I think that's the question on everybody's mind this morning. Which Texas team is going to show up? The one that beat OU in the Cotton Bowl, or the one that laid an egg in Gainesville and Athens?
You know, we've talked about it on the channel all week, Bobby. I think Jerry probably put it best. He may have been the first one to say it. This is a game. This is a week that really tests your culture, because you think about where this team was coming out of the Florida game. It's easy to get up for the Oklahoma game, especially at that point in the season where, hey, another loss and you're, for all intents and purposes, you're done. But you come off the Georgia loss, your playoff hopes are hanging by a thread, if that. You realize you're not going to get to Atlanta to contend for the SEC championship game like you did, to contend for the SEC like you did last year. And you've got a 2-win Arkansas team coming in here. And so this is a week, Bobby, that I want to see what we see from Texas from the jump, because on top of all the chatter out there about, does Sark have one foot out the door? What's the state of the program? Sark has talked about guys already coming trying to poach players off the roster. You're trying to finish up a recruiting cycle. You got the A&M game next week. Just a lot of more external stuff, Bobby. I think that's the thing, more external chatter around this program this week than we've heard in a long time around here.
Yes, I think there's a lot of external chatter. And it's not just, people are saying, well, are they going to give Sark a mandate to hire this guy or change this? Texas is not going to do that. That's not how Texas wants to operate. They let the football coach be the football coach until, he proves he's not deserving. And Steve Sarkisian is very deserving to be the head football coach at Texas. And I think that the administration and the athletic department 100% behind him. So I feel like some of this is innocuous. It's like you can't get away from it because there are national reporters like Desmond Howard, who Steve Sarkisian kind of took offense to.
Yeah, he definitely called him out on Thursday.
Yeah.
No question.
And others that give Texas a little bit of a problem, right? And Steve Sarkisian has to address those. So I think that it's not necessarily any doing of Steve Sarkisian, any doing of the administration. It's just, to your point, it's that sort of thing. We talked about it yesterday afternoon, Jeff. We hope that this is an opportunity for Texas kind of circle the wagons and get everything together. And the reason why is not just what happened with Sark, but you got to remember they're coming off a 35-10 loss in Athens, whereby the Longhorns, their manhood was questioned a little bit by Kirby Smart, the Georgia head coach, in his post-game comments, and then again in their Monday press conference as well. And so all this off-field chatter, it's not just Sark and his future. It's, we're a soft team, or, what did he say? The lack of physicality. That's what Kirby said.
Yeah.
I think that's all of that stuff.
I think the big thing for me coming off of that, Bobby, I'm going to get your take on this. Rod and I actually talked about this on Football Theory this week. You look at the way that game ended for the Texas defense, where you score, it's 14-10. You give up 2 fourth-down conversions on that drive Georgia scores on, then they get the onside kick. It's been a really long time since we've seen a Texas football team have their will broken like that in a game of consequence. Like, it just, you can call it business decisions were made by some guys or whatever, but that was staggering to me, Bobby, because we just haven't seen Texas be in that position where an opponent just kind of broke your will. Because there's some demoralizing things that happened during that swing, but that's what I want to see Texas get off the mat from. You had your spirit broken in the fourth quarter of the Georgia game last week.
A lot of truth to that. Yeah. In particular, I think to your point, I'm thinking of individual plays, Jeff, in the history of me following Texas 35, 40 years now, that felt similar to that onside kick. The onside kick was like one of those gut things that it felt like somebody just sucker punched you. You know what I mean? And I'm trying. My immediate one is the 2009 national championship game when Colt goes out and gets injured, and you're like, oh boy, this is not what this game was supposed to be. I'm sure there's been others. Puna Ford,
the Roy Williams Superman play comes to mind.
that was demoralizing, but a hold on Puna Ford, those are a personal foul penalty on Charlie Strong during that Oklahoma State. Those are the kind of just you're like, you're like that wasn't necessary. I get what it would come down to, but we'll see where it goes. Texas plays an Arkansas team today that's 2-8, 0-6 in conference. 5 of those conference losses have been by 1 score. Mm-hmm. They played the Aggies close. They played Ole Miss close. Those are two CFP members, college football playoff group schools. So it could be a close game. It could be a situation where Texas is ready to get out there, or it could go the other reason. And that's why we said at the very outset, which Texas team is going to show up?
Well, maybe a Texas team without Anthony Hill. I don't think it's a shock to anybody. He was downgraded to doubtful on the SEC availability report last night. We'll get another availability report 90 minutes before kick. But, Bobby, the concern I have with Anthony Hill being out is, yes, he's a talented player. Yes, he's one of your leaders. But in a game like this where you're facing an athletic quarterback like Tailgate Green, who, when you look at what he's done this year in the quarterback run game for Arkansas, he can beat you with the scramble and he can beat you on design runs. It's unlike, last week you faced a guy in Gunnar Stockton that did a lot of his damage on design runs. You're going to face a guy next week in Marcel Reed that does most of his damage on scrambles. You're facing a guy this week that can hit you either way. And, Arkansas, I kind of agree with what you and Jerry and Rod were talking about on the Saturday conversation, where their offensive line kind of reminds me of Vanderbilt a little bit. When they can still run the football and can control the game a little bit, their offensive line can do some things. But can Texas get them in a situation where they can rush the passer and mitigate some of that a little bit? But without Anthony Hill, Bobby, that becomes infinitely tougher facing a guy like Tailgate Green, this Arkansas offense.
Well, you lose one of your best playmakers and most athletic playmakers. And when you start talking about spying Tailgate Green, Anthony Hill spied him last year. Successfully held Arkansas to just 10 points. As far as Arkansas's offensive line and their run game, it's very explosive. Mike Washington averaging 6.5 yards per carry. Tremendous running back, power runner, but also has some speed to him. I think of it this way, like Arkansas, before Bobby Petrino took over midseason, their head coach was an offensive line guy, and Sam Pittman. So I'm not surprised that they have a highly functional offensive line or even a highly functional offense. Their issue, though, has been defense this year. I mean, they are a porous team at this point. We're going to go into those stats here in a second. Before we do that, Jeff, I'm going to tell folks about Kirby Lane, which is where we're broadcasting here on the Drag in Austin. Kirby Lane All Day Cafe is serving up chef-driven, scratch-made recipes and the local Austin vibe we all love, celebrating 45 years now. Now dinner, not just breakfast like we're having here. It's better than ever. We're talking chef-driven entrees, seasonal specials, and craft cocktails designed to elevate your night out, whether it's date night, family night, or just catching up with friends. Kirby Lane keeps it local with scratch-made dishes and the unmistakable taste of Austin. Dinner done right from a family-owned Austin original since 1980. Explore the menu today at Kirby Lane Cafe. We appreciate them and their sponsorship of On Texas Football. Those stats, Jeff, let's look at those because there are some that just stand out incredibly here. I mean, look at the passing offense. Arkansas 264 to 246. That's not that big a deal. But the scoring defense, the one at the very top, that's a when I told you that I wanted to talk about that Arkansas defense. This is where Arkansas fans just put their hands over their head and give up.
I measure bad defenses, and for better or worse, this is just my frame of reference. I go back to the 1997 Texas defense under Bobby Check, right? That was not a very good defense. And I'm like, okay, if you're giving up, if your yards per play allowed, your yards per game allowed, your scoring defense, if it's in the realm of where that defense is, you probably had a really bad year. And Arkansas is worse than that defense in just about every metric. As explosive as they've been on offense, Bobby, they are equally prone on defense to giving up chunk yardage plays. As a matter of fact, I think they lead the SEC in plays from scrimmage gained of 10-plus yards, and I think they're dead last in the conference of plays allowed this year of 10 or more yards. So they're going to give it up. And again, this is something I want to get into. I wanted to get into with you because I haven't gotten your take on it. You guys touched on it a little bit in the Saturday conversation, but Arch Manning has done a really good job of taking care of the football this year, especially of late. He did have the one interception last week against Georgia, but you can debate, hey, was DeAndre Moore held? And it wasn't like Arch just made a terrible decision on that. But, one of the things that's getting kind of lost in the sauce, Bobby, and I still, for whatever reason, I know people have their opinions. Talking about the quarterback play or sometimes lack thereof at Texas, I feel like one of the things that's trended in the right direction this year as we've gone on has been Arch's play. I think as we wind down the regular season, that's been one of the positives you can take away from this offense this year is that Arch has progressively gotten better. He's getting to the point where he can elevate everybody else around him. To catch that, and what I want to see, and this is how far I've lowered the bar for this offense, I just want guys to help their quarterback. When a ball hits you in the hands on the move, you got to make the catch, especially if it's on a third down situation. Hold that block just a hair longer. Bobby, Arch Manning is not what's wrong with this Texas offense right now.
I completely agree, Jeff. And my feeling is that he's actually elevating it.
Yeah.
And early in the year, he needed help from his teammates to get his feet underneath him. I feel like he got that for a little bit. Those 4 or 5 straight wins Texas had after that Florida loss. But now he's up above them, and now he needs the Ryan Wingos to kind of match him. The Jack Endries, the Emmett Mosleys. They're capable, but we need to see more of it, right? And that's what you're talking about. The Texas run game has been horrible. Non-existent, actually, is a better term, I think. And things like that can help your offense. It puts less pressure on even the receivers, less pressure on Arch Manning himself. But one of the things I'll go back to that you mentioned that people underappreciate. Arch has done a really good job of taking care of the ball.
Yeah.
You mentioned the Georgia turnover. DeAndre Moore was held. Now, was it held enough to be called pass interference? No, but to your point, that wasn't a poor throw.
Right.
And he's been good in the pocket. He hasn't really fumbled in the pocket. The only thing that I worry about in this game from an Texas offensive perspective is making sure that guy with 8 sacks for their team doesn't get after Arch too much.
Yeah. And
Texas makes sure they take care of the ball.
Yeah.
If those two things can handle themselves, Texas is going to score in the 30s today. Can they handle those two things? Sometimes they can, and sometimes they can't. And that's the issue with this Texas offense and, this Texas team at large, I think, at some level.
Yeah. Bobby, before we go on, we got to thank another one of our sponsors. Let's go ahead and thank our friends over at Tito's Handmade Vodka.
Yeah, absolutely. Tito's Handmade Vodka is a proud sponsor of your Texas Longhorns. Distilled and bottled by 5th Generation Inc., Austin, Texas. 40% alcohol by volume. Savor responsibly. Again, that is Tito's Handmade Vodka, proud sponsor of your Texas Longhorns. They serve that here, by the way, at Kirby Lane just a little bit later. Maybe they put it in some Bloody Marys here at Kirby Lane, but good stuff. Thank you to our friends over at Tito's. Jeff, I got to say this. We don't just have a football game going on today. We got a big recruiting list.
Massive recruiting weekend. Yeah, and this is something that Sark and the staff have talked about. Look, the schedule has been what it's been. You went 42 days between home games, and you got back for Vanderbilt, but that was an 11 a.m. kick. And especially in the state of Texas, at that point, guys are right in the thick of district races and playoff chases. But today, as a matter of fact, Jerry Hamilton, CJ Vogel are already reporting guys showing up on campus already. Richard Anderson, the big 5-star defensive tackle committed to Louisiana, he's already in town for his official visit. The two kids from Georgetown, Caden Shearer, the offensive lineman, Jet Walker, the running back. Both those guys expected on campus today after their playoff game last night. So, yeah, Bobby, it's going to be a massive visit weekend for this staff. And I think with the 2:30 kick, it gives you enough of a buffer to really maximize this weekend. I know Sark typically for a big visit weekend likes the 11 a.m. kick, but I think for this week, at this point, considering what the schedule's been, and you're not going to have very many visitors on a Friday game for Texas A&M on Thanksgiving weekend, I think he'll take what he can get at this point and try to make the most of it.
Yeah, and this list is growing, by the way. You just got to make sure you guys check out ontexasfootball.com. That's ontexasfootball.com. Jerry and CJ out there right now adding to this list of 2026 commits as well. So there's also a linebacker in town, Rocky Cummings from Chatsworth, California, who is committed to Cal. He's an official visitor this weekend. Texas had been looking for linebackers, whether it was via the high school ranks or somebody uncommitted or committed elsewhere. And he is there's Hayward Howard Sr. We made it to the 40 acres.
There you go.
He's on the list right here. That's good stuff. The father of Hayward Howard Jr., the very last name on that list right there among the 2026 commits. Thank you, Mr. Howard, for checking in with us. Long story short, big recruiting weekend, big game for the Longhorns. This game also, Jeff, I think it's fair to say Texas needs to win to keep themselves to have any chance to stay in the playoff race right now as well. So a lot of things hinging on today's game.
Yeah, real quick on the official visitors and the uncommitted guys, specifically on Rocky Cummings. I'll be honest, Bobby, I haven't watched any of his tape yet.
I watched it yesterday.
You watched it yesterday.
Yep.
But I like to look at guys. Okay, where are you committed? Who the head coach? What's his expertise? If you're a linebacker committed to Cal, that means Justin Wilcox signed off on your offer. One of the best defensive-minded head coaches in the country. That tells me this guy can play. And to your point, linebackers been in a position where they've evaluated a number of guys and looked at a number of guys. They really want to add a linebacker to this class. Knowing that, hey, after next year, you're going to lose Trey Moore, most likely Anthony Hill after this year. Leonga Lafau is going to be going into his senior year. It's getting to be that time, Bobby, where you got to restock the cupboard at linebacker.
Dude, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because if you look at it right now, I mean, Brad Spence hopefully comes back next year. Leonga Lafau will be a senior, but those are two seniors.
Yep.
Ty Anthony Smith will be a junior. Those are going to be the only three that will have playing time underneath them. Bo Barnes is here. He hasn't played all that much this year as a true freshman. Neither has Jonathan Cunningham. Linebacker group's a little thin. Now, doesn't mean they don't have great players coming in besides Rocky Cummings. I mean, Tyler Atkinson's very strong. Young man out of Georgia, one of the top linebackers in the country, as well as Cozy Akpala out of Mady Creek down in Houston. They're committed, but to your point, Texas looking to right now try to find some guys they think can really fit their system and what they want to do. Cummings, very athletic, Jeff. I actually watched his huddle tape yesterday alongside Marcus Myers.
Okay.
And Marcus,
he knows
former
something about
linebacker, yep. He really liked him, thought he attacked the ball and attacked the runner with some physicality and was able to get off blocks.
This staff is, and I know immediately people, well, can you address linebacker in the portal? Can you address X position in the portal? And I've said it all the time, Bobby. I'll say it again. There's two things you got to keep in mind. One, Steve Sarkisian, as a head coach, at his core, wants to be he said it, one of the first things he said when he took the job, he wants Texas to be a great program for player development. They want to recruit high school guys. They want to develop them. They want to turn them into NFL prospects. So they will not neglect high school recruiting. And two, on the portal, Bobby, you can have ideas of what you need in the portal. But if it's not there, you can't just make a linebacker or a guard or safety, whatever you need. You can't just make it appear in the portal if it's not there. And with rev share now, your resources, everybody's playing on a little more level playing field. You can't just go money whip a guy in the portal like you used to. So in terms of roster construction, I don't think we need to lose sight of, and I mean the royal high school recruiting and player development will always be paramount for Steve Sarkisian.
I'll tell you what's going to happen, and this is just my opinion, but I think it's an educated one. All these guys, they're going to have to play special teams early.
Oh, yeah.
A lot more than they do now, even. even though you have a Cade Phillips out there. I think that next year, special teams, you'll see 6, 7 true freshmen on special teams units, because if you're not a starter at Texas, okay, there are going to be some guys get in the portal this year.
Yeah.
If they don't have a clear path to the playing field and you're second or third team at Texas, they'll get in the portal and go to, I don't know, name it, Baylor to try to start somewhere. Yeah. The reality of it is that these younger players, whether it's Josiah Villamil, the corner out of Fort Bend out of Fort Bend area, they're going to have guys that play early on special teams to get going. I think that's going to be part of what we got. Hey, we're live here at Kirby Lane Cafe. This is one of my favorite spots in Austin. I actually ate breakfast here yesterday. What you're looking at, by the way, right now are these pecan pie pancakes. And when I tell you they taste a little bit like pecan pie, they do. They're delicious. A little omelet action with home fries as well. Delicious food here. I ate here yesterday morning. I am addicted to Kirby Lane when I come into town. You should be too. But this is a Longhorn game, Jeff. Let's look at our predictions that we all put out there this year or this week for this game.
I think I've got the high. Well, actually, I don't have the highest score. Wow, I thought I was going to have the highest score.
Went big. Coach Shipley went big.
45-31. I have 41-31, and I've wrapped my head around, Bobby. Look, this Texas secondary, it struggled in the back half of the season. You've given up as many explosive passing plays, and I counted explosive as 15 or more yards. You've given up as many, I think, one fewer in the last 3 games as you did in your first 6 combined. And, you played, that's Mississippi State, Vanderbilt, and obviously Georgia last week. So the secondary has struggled for whatever reason. And I know that the staff in the secondary was kind of late pulling things together. But for whatever reason, the front end and the back end of the defense have not been tied together as well as they have. Maybe that's coaching, it's personnel. It's probably a little bit of all of it. It just hasn't been that way. Guys aren't making enough plays on the ball either, Bobby. That's one thing that stood out to me. You look at Texas. I pulled up some numbers this week. In SEC play, Texas is tied for last in the SEC in pass breakups. So Texas, Kentucky, Vanderbilt, and Tennessee. And Tennessee, we know Tennessee's had massive injuries in the secondary, and we know Texas dealt with injury issues too. Guys just aren't putting themselves in a position. That's one thing I want to see today. We saw coverage tighten up at times as the Georgia game went on. Do we see, and I'm not saying guys are going to get up to the line of scrimmage and just press guys the whole game, but do we see things a little tighter? Bobby, I just think right now this defense, the one thing that, people have opinions on PK's coverage, and I do too, but the one thing that's, I think, been a detriment to this defense, you're letting quarterbacks get in a rhythm way too early in a game with way too many easy completions. Let's see if that changes today, if there's an adjustment made.
I agree with you. That has been my biggest issue. It's actually not the offense. And there's some people on the On Texas Football message board that kind of took me to task. Well, they only scored 10 points against Georgia. Yeah, I get that. And I'm not saying that offensive performance was outstanding. Mm-hmm. That offensive performance, they were down there at tough times where they could have, that easily could have been 21 to 24 points for Texas in that game. Not great, but not a major issue against a Georgia team. You're just not going to score that many points. But giving up 21 points alone in the fourth quarter, that's not acceptable under any circumstance. It's almost like the offense and the defense are going in separate directions right now for Texas. Yeah. And I think that it is primarily in the secondary where those issues are occurring because their teams are not running the ball on Texas right now. They are passing effectively. 2 consecutive games where your opponents have scored 21 points in the fourth quarter.
The problem.
Okay. Look, long story short, I agree with you, Jeff, about the secondary. I was unaware of that stat about pass breakups, but it makes sense to me, and that's something that Rod Babers has been calling out for us for a couple days now.
Yeah.
Is like, look, they got to get their hands on some ball. This is not – it's not okay to just sit there and get picked apart and be in the fetal position, essentially, in the secondary, which is what Texas has been in the fourth quarter of the last 2 games. They've literally reverted to the fetal position.
Yeah, and it's concerning me. It's been a while since we've seen a Pete Kwiatkowski defense bust as many coverages as this defense is busted in the last 3 games. I mean, where guys are just running scot-free down the field. So tighten it up a little bit. You know, last week, Bobby Gunnar Stockton accounted for 5 touchdowns. That's as many incomplete passes as he had. So he accounted for as many touchdowns last week as he had incomplete passes in that win for Georgia. I think you just can't do that. And one kind of silver lining to this, I think the coaches have realized, look, if we're going to struggle, let's at least struggle letting Cade Phillips get his feet wet at the back end of this season. You're seeing Jonah Williams play a little bit more. So not saying the Texas staff is throwing in the towel. They're already focused on 2026, but I think, hey, let's at least get guys that we know we're going to need to count on next year. Let's let them get their feet wet a little bit. Plus, Bobby, you're setting the table for, you know, I don't know what attrition is going to look like coming out of this season, but there will be jobs won and lost in spring football. A lot of jobs are going to be open in spring, especially in that secondary. So let guys like Cade Phillips, Jonah Williams, let them start competing for those jobs now.
I agree. So my take on that is I don't think this season is over either. They shouldn't act like it is. At the same time, you need to know what you need in the portal next year.
100%, yeah.
And if you don't know what you have in Jonah Williams, if you don't know what you have in Cade Phillips, how do you adequately or properly address the portal?
Yeah. And start talking about the portal this week. You know, if the staff plays this right, and look, I would love for Texas to be in the playoff, love for them to be in Atlanta for the SEC championship game. But if you play this right, the minute your regular season ends, it's not the worst thing in the world that the morning after the A&M game, this staff can get in the meeting room and say, all right, we know what our postseason fate is. Let's go ahead right now. Let's go all in on the portal. Let's figure out what we need. That way, the minute the portal opens, we go attack.
They're already doing that behind the scenes, obviously. I mean, Brandon Harris and that group have been evaluating players since the season started, and even maybe before the season started to some degree, right? But my point is, and this is where you and I are I think, on the same page, is I need to know if I think Cade Phillips is ready to start next year.
Yeah.
If he's ready to start, that means I likely need one less corner in the portal. Is Jonah Williams going to be ready to start next year at safety? Texas loses Michael Taft for sure. They likely lose Jelani McDonald to the draft. As of right now, I would think. I said likely, not for sure, because he hasn't made up his mind. But all of those things, right? You have to have a mindset of, okay, if I'm getting Cade Phillips back and I think he's going to start, I may not need another corner. I may not need certain things. And so I think that's a big piece of the pie.
I think on offense, and we may not see a ton of these guys today, but you know, Jack Injuries ends up going pro. All right.
Which is likely.
Let's go ahead and start giving Nick Townsend some more snaps and get him ready. You know, we know Texas doesn't rotate a ton on the offensive line. What are you going to do with Nick Brooks in 2026? You know, do you feel like he can come in and step in for DJ Campbell at right guard? You know, do you maybe try to get him a series or 2 per game? I know that probably won't happen, but that's the kind of stuff you've got to think about. Bobby, as we start to wind down here, what we've talked about, you know, the nature of this Arkansas, it's one of the best offenses in the SEC. It's one of the worst defenses in the SEC. What concerns you today? If there's on that Bobby Burton checklist, that bullet point checklist, if you can hand it to Sark before the game, what are the 3 things that concern you that Texas really needs to be buttoned up with today?
Coverage busts in the secondary, and don't let Tailgate Green run on you. So on offense for Texas, it really has to do with just taking care of the football, pass protection.
Mm-hmm.
That's simple to me. Defense is different. It's the coverage bust that they've had the last 2 weeks, and it is the idea that Tailgate Green, if he gets a lane, can be a problem. And so one of the things that I was always told, and I think that we need to be aware of, don't run past the quarterback. If you start running past the quarterback on these outside edge rushes, you all of a sudden give them a vacated lane. And Tailgate Green is not just – he's not exactly highly elusive, but you know what he is? He is very fast.
Yes.
He's a long strider. I'm not calling him Vince Young, but he eats up yardage like Vince Young did with those long strides. I mean, he takes a 3rd and 15 and he goes for 25 on a scramble. He run into open grass. And so those are the things. What about you? What's your things that you're looking for?
Yeah, you know, defensively, again, I want to see you just tighten up coverage a little bit. Just try to eliminate as many easy completions as you can. Don't let Taylor Green get into a rhythm. I also think too, one thing the kind of the chess match is, especially if Anthony Hill is out, which again he was doubtful, so I'm not expecting him to play. Can you defend the run with a light box? Because this may be a week, as good as Arkansas's run game is, as good as their offensive line is, when they can get into a groove, you may not be able to allocate more resources to the pass.
Yeah.
You may have to have a 7-man front to defend the run. You may not be able to do it with 6 or even 5 like you've been able to. So that's one thing I'm going to watch. On offense, again, help your quarterback out. If the ball is delivered on time, make a play. I think Coach Shipley and I have been on the same page with this. We were on whether it's grade show or we're on the live stream together on Thursday, and this is not a knock on Ryan Wingo. I just felt like Ryan Wingo had way too much of the target share in the Georgia game. They had 13, 14 targets. If I'm Sark, I got to dial up more stuff for Parker Livingston. I got to, especially Emmett Mosley. I want to know why Emmett Mosley shouldn't be getting the lion's share of the targets right now, because I think he's probably the most consistent guy you have at wide receiver. So I just want to see the targets spread out a little bit more. But when the ball's delivered, when the line does its job, Arch does its job, guys on the perimeter have to do their job.
I hear you, and I can tell you why Sark's thinking that the lion's share is going to Ryan Wingo. He's your big play waiting to happen.
Yeah, true. That is true.
Whether it's true or not, or whether because Ryan Wingo doesn't catch the ball, you can talk about that, or he stumbles at that opening pass against Georgia.
The yak element, the yak payoff with him is huge.
Yes, exactly. All right, guys, we need to get going here.
Yep.
I want to say thank you once again to our friends over at Kirby Lane. On game day, y'all head over to locally owned Kirby Lane All Day Cafe. The new lunch and dinner menu is fresher, bolder, and elevated with chef-driven entrees like steak frites, coconut curry salmon, and Mediterranean chicken, plus plenty of gluten-free and plant-based options. Add a craft cocktail and their famous Kirby queso. Ooh, I'm ready for that. And you've got dinner that's local, fresh, and Austin all the way. Make your next play at KirbyLaneCafe.com. Also, thank you to our friends over at Tito's. Tito's Handmade Vodka is an Austin original, proud sponsor of your Texas Longhorns. 40% alcohol. Please savor responsibly. Again, that's Tito's Handmade Vodka, brought to you by Fifth Generation Inc. All right, Jeff, I got to show you this because this is getting ready to happen here. This is syrup, and that right there is a pecan pie pancake, my brother.
I've been eyeballing those the whole show, so as soon as we go off the air, those won't be around very long. And I may just finish this water and just get this filled with Kirby queso and drink it to top it off with. No, I love Kirby Lane. Family loves Kirby Lane. So yeah, actually, there's one down in my neck of the woods in San Marcos now. So locations popping up all over the place. So Kirby Lane is great. Bobby, I'm gonna let you have the last word. Sark lets you in the locker room for a pregame, I won't say pep talk, but let you have the last word with the team. What's one thing you want to get across to this team before they run out of the tunnel today?
Go kick some butt. I mean, the talking's done. I feel like it may be a challenge to them in that, who are we really? Because fans are asking that right now. Are you the team that beat OU in Dallas? Are you the team that for the first 3 quarters made Vanderbilt look like a JV club? Or are you the team that gave up 35 and 21 in a row to Georgia? Are you the team that didn't show up in Gainesville? Which team are you? Yeah. And it's time. And we're game 11. You're either going to show us or tell us, but this is it. And so I think, especially with there still being some slim hope of a college football playoff appearance, I'm hoping for a quick start today, by the way.
100%. Yeah.
That needs to happen. Maybe put Arkansas in a situation where they have to become more one-dimensional quicker. That might be interesting. Kind of like they did against Vanderbilt. That might be the recipe for success for Texas.
Turn it into a drop back game is to your advantage. Yeah, this game, Bobby, tests your football character. A game where you're facing a 2-win Arkansas team. These guys don't understand the rivalry. I think if you're of a certain age, you probably don't. To Arkansas fans, this is your Super Bowl. But, test your football character. A 2-win Arkansas team where you got every excuse to not show up and deliver. Can this team show up and deliver today? I think that's what it's all about. Real quick, I want to remind everybody, we are not done. Our game day coverage is going to continue here at On Texas Football on the channel. Early this morning with the Saturday Conversation posted, Bobby and I are wrapping up the Tailgate show at 2:30. We've got the Watch with Us that's hosted by Aaron Hogan. I'll be a part of that. Coach Bob Shipley will be a part of that. Rod Babers will join in. And then immediately after the game, win or lose, post-game show was fired up last week, Bobby. Bobby and Rod Babers will host the post-game show immediately after the action wraps up at DKR this afternoon.
Yeah, we'll have Brian Robeson on with us, Longhorn national champion as well tonight. So that should be fun. Also want to say from here, Matt, our producer, and myself, we'll be headed over to the Tailgate, actually on campus. If you guys are listening in and are coming to the game, please stop by, say hello. We're going to be up off of Robert Dedman Boulevard, right next to where the Longhorn band gets ready. It's kind of a fun little area, about 200 yards from the stadium. Come join us. Come say hello. You guys have a good one, and hook 'em horns.
Hook 'em.